Hello, everyone. It is Sunday night, and we are at Bat City Comic Professionals coming to you live, so it must be time to wind down your weekend. As always, I am your host, Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, here to talk to you about not just this week, but also last week's best and brightest and most wonderful comic books, and all of the indie and small press books that I fell in love with this week and last week that I hope you will too. There are a ton. I think I just counted it out, and we figure it's about 80 books that I read this week. So that was this week and last week, and so I'm really excited to tell you about all of them because there's so many good ones. You're not going to believe it. I know we didn't come to you last weekend because it was Halloween, so thanks for coming back and joining us this week as we talk about all of these fantastic books. And we're going to do it while we wind down our weekend, so we've got a special wine for you in honor of the Halloween season. We've got 19 Crimes Universal Monsters collaboration, and this is the Frankenstein wine, or Franken wine, if you will. And this is their Cab Sav. Now, we've had 19 Crimes before. That's Snoop Dogg's wine. Which is really cool that Snoop makes wine. I love that his partner on it, of course, is Martha Stewart, when she makes some cool wines with him sometimes too. But I'm super excited for this limited edition collaboration between 19 Crimes and Universal Monsters. I like the 19 Crimes Crab Sav, so I hope that the flavor didn't change and like maybe just the bottle is different. But we're going to give it a taste and see. That kind of does taste a lot like the regular 19 Crimes. I love the label on the back because it says Frankenstein wasn't a monster. He was just upset that people didn't want to hang out. So next time an 8-foot-tall guest arrives, pour him a glass. And, you know, that's kind of what that book was about. Sort of. This is, it says it's firm and full with a rich mouthfeel aromatics of dark berries, violets, and vanilla, and I can definitely taste the dark berries. And honestly, the vanilla to me seems a little light for the most part, but then you get a little bit of a kick of it at the very end, which makes it super good. So yeah, I'm in for anything that's got Frankenstein on it, and so I'm excited to wind down my weekend with Frankenstein. And we are going to also get this shared so everybody knows we're talking comics. So let me pull this up, get it out there to the whole rest of the world. If you are joining us, drop in the comments that you're joining us live. If you're joining us later on YouTube, I still want to hear that you're here because I love knowing what you read, that you loved, what you maybe are winding down your weekend with, or just what you're really excited for coming up soon. So there are a lot of books coming out soon, so I understand if you've got a lot that's on your list, but share it with me in the comments because I want to hear it. I am going to try to blow through as many of these as possible, as fast as possible, because, again, I wasn't kidding, guys. There's like 80 comics here, and this doesn't even count the picks of the week or anything else. I'm going to turn it. You ready? You ready for this? It's so heavy, I don't want to do that.
You can't even see it all.
You can't even see it all. That's insane. It's going to be awesome. I love doing 1 week at a time, obviously, because it's way easier for me, but it's so much fun when I do 2 weeks at a time, and I'm like, look at the massive pile of comics. I just like to see it. But hopefully you're going to find something that you're happy to see while we talk about these comics, and I'm going to jump in and get this going. What's the furthest place from here? Issue 15 from Image Comics. This has been an ongoing fan favorite because, you know, it's Matthew Rosenberg and Tyler Boss, and they are such a good team when they come together. And this is kind of what if the Warriors was just a little bit different. So we've still got those post-apocalyptic settings. We've got teenagers who are all, and kids who are all living on their own. They kind of define their gods by the place that they hole up in. And we learned at the very beginning that when you turn to adulthood, something happens and you just kind of have to wander off in the woods and die, essentially, or something of the fact. And over the first arc, we learned about Sid, who was pregnant, but they didn't know anything about what that meant. And she wandered off on her own because she didn't want to put her family in danger. And then we've spent 2 arcs kind of hunting for her. And then in this arc, we went back to Sid's story Well, we've jumped back to our other people for those two stories to finally intersect. And I love what we find out about it, because the things that we thought we knew about what happens to people in this world when they find out that they're turning age and everything, we had no idea. We knew nothing. And so what seems like we should have been coming to a conclusion and wrapping up just blew up in this issue. And so if you haven't read What's the Furthest Place from Here, grab some of those that first trade paperback, get started on it, and get stoked, because it is a fun journey that these two are bringing you. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue 10 from Boom Studios. This is one of my favorite comics on the shelf. Jason Aaron writing, Lila Del Duca art, which are two things that I absolutely love to see together. And this is the story of two people who are also living in an apocalyptic world, but it is a wasteland, and they have finally managed to build their perfect utopia. They've brought other people in, and now, because of some mysterious gas and some other situations, they are starting to go crazy and kind of kill each other. And the whole thing is a giant allegory for relationships and love. And I love the way that Jason Aaron has woven in the point where you start to see the other person as a thing that you hate, and how you just can't get past it, that broken feeling of, I don't know what's wrong, and I can't see them as anything other than the monster that I myself have painted them out to be. And so in this, we actually see Mezzi and Masio fighting, and they both think that they're fighting mysterious monster, and they're trying to get to the other one because they know they love the other person, but all that they can see in the end is a beast, and they are fighting against each other, and we as readers know that, but they have no idea. And it's such a great allegory for love. Fantastic. Grab this book. I Hate Fairyland, issue 10 of this newest volume that we're in. We know, if you've been following along, Gert is stuck back in Fairyland. She wants to get back out. She's messed everything up again, and now the only way that she can get out is if she gets a key that was meant for Duncan the dragon. And the only person who can help her get that is former Queen Claudia, who is in prison. And so Gert has to get herself thrown in prison so that she can break Claudia out, so that she can get a key. And things never go Gert's way at all, and this is just another example of that. And if you cannot get enough I Hate Fairyland, we are also currently on issue 5 of the really long title of Side Quest Stories for I Hate Fairyland. It is, the Untold Tales of I Hate Fairyland. Add in about 16 other words in there to define it. I Hate Fairyland is kind of Captain Underpants for adults. And you kind of get that even from that title, but it's if you love those fun, humorous adventure stories, they're definitely building out a great one, still for a decade now. Kara, Guardians of the Realm, issue 9 from Vitiate. This is the story of a young girl who is, in fact, the guardian of the realms, and her job is to keep this balance of peace and nature in the realm beside our realm. And she has, in issue 1, these two boys land there, and they are from the future, and they say they're just coming to observe. But over the course of time, we've learned that that's not true. They are here actually to steal resources, not only from Kara's realm, but now that they know about the earthly realm, they're going to try to steal that. And the only person who can stop them is Kara. But she's so new to humans, and she's so new to people betraying her, that she is only just now learning that maybe some people aren't the good-hearted people that she's used to. This is an absolutely beautiful story. What a masterful first thing to come out from Vitiate Entertainment. This was their big launch book. And it continues to just be impressive every issue. So if you haven't read it yet, it is all ages. Grab it and read it with your kids if you have kids. And if you don't, honestly, just fall in love with a great story. For somebody who's fans of things like Avatar: The Last Airbender or those happy stories. Traveling to Mars, issue 9 from Ablaze Comics. I just read a post from Mark Russell that he said when he is done with Traveling to Mars, he believes it will be the best thing he's ever written. And as Mark Russell is one of my favorite writers, I cannot wait to see what is going to happen at the end that is making him feel that way, because the story has been fantastic so far. in this book, we have a character who is that lovable loser who has nothing going for him in this world. And so he finds out he has cancer, and they're like, hey, we're looking to send somebody to Mars who's not ever going to come back to claim it for our fast food company. And he's like, yeah, sure. You know, we need resources. I've got nothing going for me. I'll go claim these resources. And so him and these robots have been traveling to Mars. And now that they have landed on Mars, they have learned that what they thought they were getting into is not actually the case. And so now, you know, he's kind of feeling like maybe none of it was worth it. Maybe he's not going to be this last minute hero of Earth that he thought he was going to be. And the existential crisis is getting even bigger. Beautiful story. As always, Mark Russell is a masterclass of writing, and such a great way of telling the craziest stories to actually bring about some really great conversation and some really awesome, just mind-blowing moments. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend Traveling to Mars. One of my favorites as well. Ghostlore, issue 6 from Boom Studios. This is about a girl and her father who is a minister, and the two of them suddenly find themselves with the power to see spirits from the afterlife. And they learn very quickly that it's their responsibility to kind of usher these people to the other side. She is happy to do it. She wants to help. That's what she's always wanted. And her father believes that they are both sacrilegious to what his belief system is, but also the cause of all of his anger from what happened to him. And so he has decided that he is not going to help them, and he is not going to be a good shepherd and steward of his new powers. And so while she is finding friends that can help her, he is finding ways to hurt not only these ghosts but people through them. It's going to get intense. It's building up bigger and bigger. I think we're going to see some epic wars. We just got mention of some new characters who are going to be something crazy that's coming along, and I'm really curious to see how this journey plays out for both of them. Monomyth, issue 6 from Mad Cave. This is the end of the Monomyth story. And it has been a fun one. We found out that in every generation, essentially, there must be a wizard ruling power over all of magic. And what happens is when they called the wizard forward, 7 people show up. And because of that, they must battle out to find who is in charge of the story of magic. And they mean that literally, because magic is performed through the art of your story, and you cannot steal other people's stories to do it. It has come down in this issue to the final 3, one girl and a twin girl and boy who have been at odds and have not spoken to each other in years. And they have to kind of come together to figure out who's going to be the final person. And whether that's coming together or destroying each other is the decision that they all have to make. And the darkness that is inside of this place and inside of this magic is definitely trying to corrupt each of them to destroy the other. And how it plays out is such a cool story from Mad Cave. So check that out for sure. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventure issue 6 from IDW. If you haven't been reading these are exactly like watching an episode of the TV show, and this one is amazing. It is all about Chrome Dome decides he is going to run for mayor of the city. And he is, he's got all of these different things that he's doing. And the turtles realize they can't attack him, because if they attack him, it makes them look bad and not Chrome Dome, but they don't trust him. So they have to follow him and see if they can figure out what sneaky plan he's actually up to, because we know Chrome Dome is a villain. And how can a villain be a good person and run for office? And why would people want to vote for a villain? Are all questions the Ninja Turtles ask themselves and the audience as you read this. This was fantastic. I've never heard the Ninja Turtles, the Ninja Turtles always teach us a really good lesson, but this is definitely, the Ninja Turtles had a lot to say in this one. So I highly recommend, if you are a Ninja Turtles fan and a fan of politics, that you read that issue for sure. No One, issue 6 from Image Comics and the Black Market Narrative imprint, which is our massive first. So Radiant Black, Dead Lucky, Rogue Sun, Radiant Pink, Radiant Red, all of those things. This is another piece, allegedly, of the puzzle with, as always, no connection to the world. If you've been following the massive verse, you know that each thing doesn't actually connect except for in the one annual crossover. And this story follows a cop and a journalist and her friend who have started a podcast, and they are all researching a serial killer. And the rumor is, because he confessed, even though there's no proof, that it is the son of the cop. And so he doesn't trust his own son. His son's in prison, and yet now there are copycat murders. Or are they actually just murders being committed by the actual killer? That is what our podcast people are trying to figure out. And in this issue, in the previous issue, they have named a couple of people that they believe are possibly the killer, or the copycat killer, whichever way you want to look at it. And now all of those people have a giant target on their back, and they are starting to pop up dead. And is no one going to come and help them? That could go both ways, just depending on how you want to look at that. But this is really heating up on where this is going to go. And there is a podcast. So if you like that mixed media, big world building, you can actually listen to the podcast starring Patton Oswalt and Rachel E. Cook for even more info as they put this together. We're going to skip that one because I didn't finish it. Godzilla, Here There Be Dragons, issue 5 from IDW. And this is the wrap-up to this story. This is all about a pirate who has found Skull Island, Monster Island. And he's like, I've been to Monster Island there, and the queen is in charge of everything going on there, and you need to watch out for your queen because she is a part of this conspiracy to hide Monster Island and the existence of Godzilla and the dragons. And so this whole time he has been sitting in a prison cell telling this story to the queen's guards. And some of them believe him, some of them do not. But at the same time, we get to see the cool backstory of them trying to find this treasure on Monster Island and all of the battles that Godzilla goes through. It's just fun. It's purely just the most fun if you can have by combining Godzilla and pirates, something you always never knew you always needed. So check it out. Now that it's finished, you can see the whole thing. Titan, Mouse of Might, issue 5 from Blood Moon Comics. We have had quite a delay from the last issue of this one, so, you know, if you forgot about it, he's back. This is essentially if Batman was a mouse who was experimented on in the lab, and now he is going after the evil scientist that did the experiments on him and is also experimenting on other animals, and he is trying to save each and every one of those animals. And in the last issue before our big break, he kind of didn't fare well, and we thought we might have lost Titan, and Titan is back to give us a little more fight and to show this human that he is not going to back down as long as there are other animals in danger. What's really cool about this, I'm trying to find one of the pages. I mean, that's just cool. But a lot of the times the lettering becomes the paneling, which I think is just a really cool way to do it. They really play with the medium a lot in this book, and because it's in black and white, they kind of have some more ability to stretch some of those things without having to worry how the color will fade in. Here's one of those pages where the lettering is the paneling. Such a cool idea, and of course, who doesn't want to see a little mouse take on the evil scientist who has been doing bad things? So check it out. We're big fans of Blood Moon Comics, and so if you haven't read a Blood Moon comic yet, there's probably one for you out there of some kind. Void Rivals, issue 5 from Image and the Skybound imprint. If you are excited for G.I. Joe or Transformers to come to Image, you need to start here. This is going to be the start of your Inner John universe that Robert Kirkman is building. And you're not going to see a lot of either of those things in this book, but you are going to build out what is going to be the base for that new combination world. And we have been following these two characters who crash landed. They are from warring races and warring planets, and they hit each other in space, crash landed on a planet, and they had to help each other get away. While they were doing it, they realized there's not really that much difference between the two of them. And so they thought, oh, what a great idea. Let's go back and tell our people this. And that never works out, because when you're in a war, chances are the people who are in charge already know all of the secrets that they don't want you to know, and you've been played this whole time. But we learn in this issue a lot of backstory about our two characters that they never released to the other one because they didn't want the other person to have too much info about them. So now we've got a lot more going on with who these characters are and how they connect to the world at large. And we start to see how this war and these two different groups of people connect to Energon, the Energon universe, and Cybertron specifically. So start there if you're excited for Transformers. I'm going to take a drink really fast of my Franken wine, aka the 19 times Universal Monsters collaboration, Frankenstein wine. I just love Frankenstein, and the fact that he made a wine is just so great. This is what you should have been using your powers for, Dr. Frankenstein. He, blending all those great things together to make a delicious wine instead of a creature that you can't control. Who is a better person than you in the end, Dr. Frankenstein? All right, we're going to keep going. Under the Influence, issue 4 from Mad Cave. This is all about a cult that is essentially created by social media by trying to get people to want to be influencers. And as people are starting to die, the FBI decides to send someone undercover, and they choose their youngest, most likely to blend in with college students person who actually survived a cult herself and is actually kind of a social media influencer now. And so they send her to this college undercover, and everything that could possibly go wrong has, because immediately upon arrival, the person she's supposed to be investigating already knew that there was something going on with her. And she's been played 1,000 times, and he has played everyone else 1,000 times. And every time we start to get a movement in the right direction, this guy is just completely ahead of us. And the power of influence is that nobody ever believes anything she says, and you can manipulate the people to do anything you want. This book is almost terrifying in how well he manipulates the masses, and how much people are just like, oh, well, I saw it on social media, so it's totally true. And now I'm going to put it on my social media because I want people to know that I was there and I saw it. It gets creepy and scary fast. Definitely check it out, though, because it's a great story. And I feel like it's flying under the radar. Ironically, I don't feel like there's a big enough social media campaign for Under the Influence, so make one, somebody. The Traveler's Guide to Flagoria, issue 4 from Scout Comics. This is a fan favorite at Bat City. We have so many people who are loving this crazy off-the-wall book. This is about a guy who, once again, your lovable loser. He's got a lot of anxiety towards everything, and he kind of just tries to hide in the background. And he's selected at his job to go interview the crazy guy that they interview like once a year, who talks about monsters in the weird world he's from. And stuff goes wrong. Guy ends up getting sent to this parallel universe or parallel world that guy is from, and now he can't get back. And so now he's living the life of the crazy person who's trying to get back on the inside. And he happens to meet up with the wife of the person that's stuck in Earth. And she's like, I've got this guidebook that he made in case this ever happened, and we've got to get you out of here, and here are all the things you have to do. And of course, their leader has this weird obsession with humans and all of their things, and so he's trying to hunt them down. And we've got to get to the drop point before it's too late. And this is like half Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, half I don't know what, but it's amazing. It does have very much like that Hitchhiker's Guide, but it's more, almost more comical, and yet almost more action. Like, this is like, it takes all of it up a notch, just a little bit. And so this is a lot of fun. If you're a fan of that, you're going to fall in love with that. And you're going to see a lot of probably homages to that you will catch if you are a fan. Snow White, Zombie Apocalypse, issue 4 from Scout Comics. Another book that we've had quite a bit of a delay between the last issue and this one. But I'm glad that it did come out for the Halloween season. And this is all of your favorite fairy tale characters living in a zombie apocalypse, and Rapunzel and Snow White and Prince Charming have all met up with the woodsmen, and they are trying to get through the woods to somewhere safe before the zombie apocalypse can get to them. And the wolves that are always bad guys in fairy tales have also been transformed by the zombie virus. And so now they're being hunted by the wolves. And in this particular issue, they're like, hey, it's okay. We found this house in the middle of the woods. We could just hide in it. And one of them's like, Rapunzel's like, does that not always lead to bad things in our world? And they're like, no, it's totally fine. And then they get in the house and they're like, why does this house smell like gingerbread? Why does it seem like it's so sweet? And you know where we're going if you know your fairy tales. And so things get bleak once again for our team really quickly. But we're going to see who makes it out of this apocalypse and who doesn't, because the zombies are still coming and things are just getting worse. Scrapper, issue 4 from Image Comics. This is the story of, this is the adult version of Bolt, essentially. It's the story about a dog who has to save the day, who's been genetically engineered. And at the very beginning, he kind of just helps out in the city, just doing little things. And the people that he feels are his family, something bad happens to them. And so he's like, you know what, it's time I go after the people who made me like this, who keep attacking the humans and the animals alike in our neighborhood. And so if you want something done and you want it done right, the only people on the street who can help you in any world are the cats. And so Scrapper goes to the cats and he gets them to help him come up with a plan. And now him and his team and the cats and his one human friend that he still has around are going to work together to take down this evil empire that is running our world. And I cannot wait to see how he does it, because he's got an awesome crew now, and it's going to be so good. And I just love this. I love these characters. They're all just like, they're just so good because they're animals, so they're like all happy and want to save the day. And so he's so superhero-ish, but also like, again, you have a team of cats, and you were like, your book was good, but then you didn't make cats the bad guy. You made them the ultimate like good guys and the smart ones in the room. And I'm like, all right, you got me, Scrapper. Thanks for not making cats the bad guy. It's about freaking time. The Sacrificers, issue 4, also from Image Comics. And honestly, I can already say 4 issues in, this is my favorite Rick Remender book ever. It is such a cool concept. We've got a world where everybody must sacrifice one of their kids, like raise them and then send them off to be sacrificed to the gods. And we, in this issue, or in the last issue, I guess, we kind of learned what happened and what they do with those sacrifices. And they've all been told that it's the ultimate glory and it's the best thing that could ever happen to you. And we learn, of course, something we assume that it's actually not. But we're also following along with the gods in their story. And so they've all come together and they're at this party. And we meet the moon goddess, the woman of night. And she is against this plan that all the gods have to live forever and to have this perfect health. And you can kind of see them like de-aging and all of the stuff that they do to kind of continue to live. And she's like, I refuse to be a part of this. You should all join me. We should move on. We should actually be the benevolent gods we're supposed to be. And of course, nobody agrees with her except her young daughter, who is snuck in and is like, I want to see where this is going. I cannot wait for wherever it is going. I want to see how all of these people connect. I want to see if there's an uprising. I want to see if there's not ever an uprising. I just got to know where we're leading. This book has been so good so far. If you have not checked it out, you need to grab Sacrificers immediately. Again, best Rick Remender book. The Ribbon Queen, issue 4 from AWA. This is as violent as I expect a horror book from Garth Ennis to be. And it is so great. This is the story of a woman who is a detective, and she finds out that a girl that had been attacked a long time ago and was supposed to be protected by some cops has now been killed. And she believes it was actually one of the cops that did it because she can talk to this dead girl. And we find out over the course of these 4 issues that there is an entity called the Ribbon Queen. And anytime women are violently injured and things go terribly wrong, this Ribbon Queen kind of possesses another woman and uses her as a way to get to this world and literally rip the attackers to shreds. She turns them into ribbons. That is why she's called the Ribbon Queen. And I'm going to show you what that looks like because it's horrifying. And our young girl who was killed is kind of the person that she's using as this gateway right now, and kind of relying on our detective to lead her through the thing. And in this issue, we find out the how of the young girl's murder and all the backstory to it. And I'm like, go Ribbon Queen, go. Like, when you read this, you're just like team Ribbon Queen all the way. Like, nobody deserves to survive. Let's just take them all out kind of thing. So if you want to read a horror book where you root for not only like a serial killer, but like a ghost serial killer, like you're like, I'm on the ghost side in this one, this is the book for you. And it's got so much awesomeness in it. The Nasty issue 4 from Vault Comics. It's finally here. That was even like the post that the creative team made was like, hey, it's finally here. It happened. Issue 4 of The Nasty is out. This is part of their Nightfall imprint, which is the horror line at Vault. And this is the story of a bunch of teenagers and the lady who owns the video store, who are so excited because they have the only way they can save the video store is by screening for a big giant festival one of those movies that it's like, you should never watch this and nobody's ever seen it. And so they find it, they're gonna screen it, and on like the day that they watch it to see what actually happens in it, the VCR eats it. And now they are creating their own horror movie because they're like, well, nobody knows what it was, so if we just say this is the worst like the most horrific movie ever, we should be fine. Meanwhile, they need a villain, and our main character actually has basically like a Jason from Friday the 13th imaginary friend who is from one of the movies like Friday the 13th, and that guy is now able to be seen by other people, and so they are using him as their bad guy, but things are starting to happen. It's getting crazy. And as always in a Vault story, we have to have some beautiful heartfelt moments added onto it. And so in this one, we add on the fact that the mother and the son, who's our main character, have always had a tumultuous relationship, and we find out why that is, and they start to build that bridge back in this movie, or in this issue. And I'm really worried about what's going to happen, but I cannot wait to see at the same time. Count Dante, the unauthorized but sort of true story of the deadliest man who ever lived, issue 4 from Scout Comics, which is actually the unauthorized but sort of true story of the deadliest man who ever lived. This is, Count Dante is actually a martial arts person from the Chicago area who lied about his entire personality, and you may, if you read old comics, you may actually see some of his crazy ads that he used to run in those comics. But it is the story of a man who learned martial arts and then falsified his identity to open up both a dojo and a salon. But he held one of the greatest tournaments. You can actually see Chuck Norris in here. He held a massive tournament of martial artists to see who the greatest one was, did all of these crazy things. And this is the story of his partner in the salon and, you know, the martial arts, recanting the story of what happened and how it all actually went down. Or so, you know, we're led to believe. And what led to his rise and his fall. And so we're going to get all of that, and we are starting to see more of the fall side come into place with this. This has been fascinating. I had no idea this was real. A real story, and so I was just like really into like what I thought was a really great blend of fiction and reality, because it was like the sort of true story. And then I actually looked up the story, and I was like, wow, this is even cooler now that I see what is actually from his, you know, past and what isn't. So check it out. If you're a fan of martial arts, you definitely need to be reading that story. Quicksand, issue 4 from Scout Comics. Starship Troopers, but in like Egypt, essentially, is where we're going with this. This is the story of some monsters that have suddenly come out of the ground and are on our Earth, and they are attacking everybody. And a woman's partner, he goes to this exploration for it, and he never comes back. And now she has shown up and gone to that same place and is like, I'm going to do the investigating. I'm going down there. And so she has taken her own team down into this pit, and we learn a lot about what is actually going down there. And things get darker and spookier and more dangerous the further into the pit they go, and we are going to see if anybody actually makes it out by the end of the story. And this is done by our buddy Jonathan Hedrick, so check it out. Bryn Mawr, issue 4 from IDW. This is kind of like a fun, like, version of, like, it's kind of like a little bit less spooky, less in-depth version of Midnight Mass, because we do have the story of a guy who is from an island, and all of his family was, like, considered to have cursed the island. He left, everybody left. He's now come back, and he goes to live within the church walls of the town church that his family used to run. And while he's living in there, he discovers a basement, and he goes into the basement and accidentally awakens a terrible evil, which may actually be the cause of this curse. And now bad things are happening all over the island, and people are out to get him because they think he has once again brought their doom to the world. And so you've got to check it out. This is the newest Steve Niles book, so if you're a fan of his work, he's been doing a lot of, like, only 2-part series recently, so it's cool to see him going with a little bit longer of a mini-series. The Lonesome Hunters, The Wolf Child, issue 4 from Dark Horse, and this is technically volume 2 of Lonesome Hunters. And honestly, you definitely want to read volume 1 before you go into this. But this is, Lonesome Hunters is about an old man who, when he was a kid, his father was a part of a cult, and they had this sword, and the sword chose who it was that was going to be responsible for it, and it was the little boy. And now he's had it, and he's lived this massive life, and all that comes with it is demonic stuff, and his responsibility supposed to save the world, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. In volume 1, he ends up partnering up with a little girl, and they have been on the run. And while on the run, they meet a kid who believes this wolf in the woods is its mother, and it's protecting them. And the people of this town that they're in are trying to kill this wolf, and our young girl is like, we can't let that happen. And so they have been working to kind of help defend this wolf mother and her cub. And it's just an awesome, really done story of this little girl kind of dealing with her own trauma of not being able to save her parents and wanting to see where that goes from there. So, again, I would definitely recommend reading volume 1 before you read volume 2 of Lonesome Hunters, but it's a really, really cool story, so you want to do it because it's still carrying that major arc all the way through. Savage Squad 6, issue 4. This is also from Dark Horse. I actually thought that, like, issue 3 was the end of this, and then now this is actually the end. And this is about a group of women who go on a mission to Chernobyl, and they're supposed to be recovering this certain canister of stuff. And when they get there, they find out that not only are there other humans who are after it and after them, but on this attack, they learn that there are also these massive radiated wolves, like giant wolves. And so you just get your knockdown, drag out, like, huge fight between them and these wolves. And you get to see a lot of explosions. Honestly, it's like watching, like, Red or what are the ones with all the old action heroes coming back in and doing a movie? Expendables. It's a lot like Expendables, but if it was an all-girl team. And the corner box I love because it changes with each issue to count down how many people are still left, like, as the issues go on. So it's kind of a cool way to, like, get a key of who's still in play. Alice Never After, issue 4 from Boom Studios. This is one of my favorite series on the shelf, and you all know that if you know me, because I love Alice in Wonderland, and I think what Dan Panosian is doing with this story is just absolutely phenomenal. And this is volume 2. Alice Ever After was the first volume, and in that, Alice discovered that her dad was doing a bunch of terrible things, and so kind of leads her to to doing drugs, and then she ends up in an insane asylum where they handle things the way they did in the Victorian time period. And now Alice is lost inside Wonderland, and it's nothing that she wants it to be. She's now the new Queen of Hearts. They're trying to force her to take a husband. The Cheshire Cat, who is the biggest problem, is trying to say that it has to be him, and Alice is trying to stay away from him. And the Mad Hatter is also somebody that she knows is against her, and she hates being near him. Meanwhile, in the real world, her sister is trying to figure out if there's a way back from the procedures that they performed on her. And there's a big twist to the story that is definitely going to come into play on whether or not there's any hope for Alice and what her family is going to do for her. You absolutely need to read this story. Grab volume 1 and trade paperback, because you cannot read volume 2 without volume 1, and then start catching up on volume 2 because it's so good. And it has some of the most beautiful covers. Tear Us Apart, issue 3 from Dark Horse Comics, and this is Jay Baruchel from all of the Seth Rogen movies and the voice behind How to Train Your Dragon, writing a comic book, so it's really cool. And this is kind of I almost like a modern emo Romeo and Juliet in a feels like it's supposed to be kind of an apocalyptic world, but or a dystopian world, not an apocalyptic, a dystopian world, but at the same time, it actually just feels like it's our world with some extra stuff added in. And it takes place in the 90s. And so we have 2 kids who are being trained as assassins by this secret society, and they've been told that everything in the outside world is gone, and that their job is to just work together to help defend what little they have left. And they have all those Jedi-style rules where you can't fall in love with somebody. And of course, two of the teens fall in love, a boy and a girl. And they decide that they're not going to stick around, and so they run away. And they end up staying with this woman that finds them in the snow. And this issue is so beautiful because they get a chance to go to a mall, which as a teenager in the 90s, I understand the value and importance of that. But they've never heard of a mall. They've never heard music. They've never heard anything. And so they wander through the mall, and they have the ultimate 90s kid in the mall experience. And it's just absolutely wonderful. And then we get to see what is coming for them in the future. And we get to learn a little bit more about this secret society that's been brainwashing kids and showing them. It's so good. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Prometheus in Chains, issue 3 from Red 5 Comics. Speaking of Frankenstein, this is what if Victor Frankenstein had been at the time of Oppenheimer. And so him and Elizabeth have been brought to America. She's also a scientist in this story. And they are working on the nuclear bomb. And in the process, Elizabeth gets very sick and passes away. So Victor is like, it's my responsibility to save my wife. And so that's how we get our Frankensteinian monster. And he has done his best, which we know, if you're a fan of Frankenstein, is actually his worst. And the monster within himself and within the thing that he has created is coming for him. I can't show you anything else of this book because so much of it is spoilery, so I don't want to ruin that. But speaking of Frankenstein, we're drinking 19 Crimes Frankenstein Universal Monster Collaboration Cabs Up. Snoop Dogg makes good wine. I always love getting 19 Crimes bottles because Snoop wine's so good. All right, what else we got? Miskatonic High, issue 3, and it's got one of those nice protective covers on it, and this is from, is it Advent that does these? Yeah. This is a very slow, quarterly comic, but I love it every time it comes out. It is about a bunch of kids who are kind of living a Lovecraftian experience, and they went on an adventure in issue 1, and everything went wrong for everybody, and now we're kind of back. And some of them are trying to go back to regular life. Some of them are not. And in this issue, we find out that one of the characters has seen ghosts and really doesn't want to and doesn't want to have that experience. And we kind of see how that plays out for them and how the mom is like, I don't want you to have these experiences either. It's never been good for anybody in our family. And so we kind of see a little bit of a different character than we've been following for the last couple of issues, but we do get to come back and see more of the group of Miskatonic High and the bad thing that they've experienced and how that's going to come into play for all of them. So if you are a fan of Lovecraft and you'd like a almost young adult version of it that you can latch onto, I definitely think that Miskatonic High is a good one for you to jump into. Miracle Kingdom issue 3 from Scout Comics. This is like your pulp detective, except he's actually an angel, and so he works for the other side, solving mysteries about whether or not miracles are true. It's kind of his responsibility to go through and investigate when miracles are happening. And he has a woman come to him who says her son has been bamboozled by a man who is one of those megachurch pastors, and he swears he's performing miracles on people. And she just believes that Jesus would have spoken to her in another way if that was the case, and she just doesn't trust him. He seems shady, and so our angel is investigating that, and we find out that there are things that even he doesn't understand, and as he does his investigation and these things start to unravel, the truth has become multifaceted, and nobody seems to really know what it is, even the ones involved. Really good. I love his sidekick is a cherub angel, and so he's always like, oh, you should come on a mission with me because you always like all this human stuff, and he's like, I'm not going to the human world. If you go as a cherub, you have to play like a baby, and I'm not going to humiliate myself like that. It's super cute. Per Evil issue 3 from Image Comics. This is the story of a young girl whose parents were big rock stars, and they decided they were going to mess around with some magic and see what kind of dark magic they could get into. And they accidentally awaken a demon, and the demon has these evil cat minions. And now their daughter was basically offered, like, the thing that they had to do to awaken this demon was essentially offer their child whenever they would have one to it. And so now this girl has these cat minions that make everybody around her go crazy and get evil. And so her mother took her away from her father and has been hiding her all of these years. And now, because she fell in love with the boy, she has gone out into the world, and her father has found her, and the demons have found her, and bad things are happening, and people are dying. And it's crazy. So check it out. Mother Russia issue 3 from Comics Experience Publishing, and this is the end of this particular arc of Mother Russia. We've had a couple before, or one before, I think, maybe just a one shot. Anyway, Mother Russia is the story of a woman who is left behind in Russia during a zombie apocalypse, right after World War II, at the edge of it. And so basically, like, all the soldiers and everybody around have been turned into zombies. And in this particular arc, she finds a baby in the middle of the zombie horde, and is like, I guess I have to save this baby. And so she goes out and collects this baby, and she can't get back to her tower that she's been hiding in because of everything. And she meets a soldier and his dog, and they kind of save her and bring her back, and she learns over the course of the thing whether or not she can trust him and whether or not the world is safe, and how she might need to move through this zombie apocalypse going forward in the future. So if you're a fan of zombies, this is a really great one too. And it's only 3 issues, and you don't have to know anything about Mother Russia. You can just jump in on this little series. The Schlub, issue 3 from Image Comics and their Kids Love Chains KLC Press, which is Ryan Stegman's imprint. And this is Ryan Stegman writing this book. So this is the story of a guy who is not a lovable loser. He is a jerk of a person who kind of has that, like, you know, down on his luck, everybody hates me attitude, but he's doing it to himself. And while he's working one day, a superhero crashes into his office, and they Freaky Friday it, and now all of a sudden he has the powers of he is in the body of the superhero, and the superhero is in the body of him. And he tries to save some people, but he's very destructive, and he doesn't follow along with any of the superhero rules, so he's being reprimanded by the superheroes in this issue. But also in this issue, we find out that all the things that he thinks are just his personal problems because everybody's mean to him are actually just universal problems. Like, sometimes your family sucks, and sometimes your job is hard, and nobody cares that you do it. And he's kind of starting to see that maybe he's not the only one that has that problem, and we're going to see where that plays out for him as he gets a big slap in the face towards the end of this issue from the superhero's life. Spend the Night, issue 3 from Kong Comics, and this is all about the invasion portion of this spooky night. This is about a bunch of girls who, in issue 1, have the stupid idea to play with evil spirits at a sleepover and awaken a girl and kind of the spirit of a woman who was bullied, and then what do? They like bully it and talk mean to it. And so now they have a rule from this demon that's like, basically, if you don't spend every Friday night with me having a sleepover and being nice to me, I'm going to kill everybody in your family. And so at the very first sleepover, they've already messed that up. And so evil creatures are awakening and coming out, and they end up going to the girls, take off with some other friends, and they go to the grandmother, who is into all of the witchcraft and knowledge, because you always have to have in your classic horror movies a one older lady who knows the secrets of things. And she tells them all the stuff they need to know, but she also collects creepy dolls, and now creepy dolls are coming to life and bad things are happening. You get all of your classic horror movie tropes in this, and it's really just like watching a B movie for horror, so it's a lot of fun, and if you like those, you should definitely check it out. Plot Holes, issue 3 from the massive publishing company. This is another one of my favorite books, and honestly, I only just didn't put it in Picks of the Week because I felt like you guys already know that I love it, so I thought I would open up spots for other things. But this is the story of a group of people who are called the Plot Holes, and basically they're all fantasy characters from different or fictional characters from different books, like a manga character and a kid that's supposed to be like Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes, and a vampire and a villain, and they are all supposed to be working to stop stories that are destroyed, whether it's from bad writing. And they have brought in a guy who is from a story where he was creating comic books, and he's on their team now. And their team is led by a woman named Ed, and she is like their lead editor, and we get so many backstories in this issue. We actually finally get some secret information about Ed, which really, really explains so much of the story. But this is such a good book, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to see where it goes, because as this team gets further and further developed, in our minds, the villain also is getting stronger, and he is literally using a worm to eat through books right now, and the destruction is just destroying the fictional world all around them as fast as possible. The Midnight Show, issue 2 from Dark Horse Comics. If you like Universal Monsters and you're drinking your Frankenstein 19 Crimes wine, this is a good book to put on with it. This is all about a found footage film that is essentially the all-out monsters attack version of the Universal Monsters, and nobody's ever seen it. And something allegedly happened to the actor when they were filming it, and he disappeared. And so they are screening it now that they found it at a theater. And the night that they screen it, all of the monsters in the movie start to come to life and start to attack all these kids and people in the theater. And this one group of kids, when they run out of the theater, finds themselves in this issue suddenly inside the movie. And it's all around them. They can't get out of it. And they are trying to figure out how they're going to survive. And the only adults with them, one of them is like a film critic who's been reviewing these movies forever. And the other one is an actress, who's like the former Scream Queen. And it gets crazy really fast, and we're going to see all of essentially the Universal Monsters with different names show up in this world, and it is going to be a blast. So if you like found footage and you like Universal Monsters and you want to see a great story, check it out. Ranger Academy, issue 2 from Boom Studios. I am not a fan of Power Rangers extensively. I have seen the show from the very first early stuff of the show, and not much other than that. But I love this book so much. It is a perfectly fun young adult book that just actually brings a new, all the Power Rangers lore into kind of an organized manner. It is about a young girl who lives on a planet, a dark moon, with her dad, who seems to be very against all of the rest of the world and all the rest of the people. And 2 kids from Ranger Academy accidentally crash land on there, and she ends up stowing away and going back to sneak in to attend Ranger Academy with them. And this issue particularly is her very first day at the school, and we kind of see her start to learn as the time goes on. We see what Ranger Academy looks like. And we learn a little bit about her past that she doesn't learn, but that we get to see. And if you are a Power Rangers fan, you absolutely 100% need to read this book, because this is bringing, like I said, a just clear-cut, structured, beautiful organization to that Power Rangers lore. But it is also, for those of you who, like me, are like, I liked Power Rangers, but I never continued with it. It was a little bit after my time. But I know enough of it to be into it. This is the thing that'll make you go, oh, wow, this is really cool, and maybe I should check some of that out for sure. So, and we're only 2 issues in, so now's the time. Alice Cooper, issue 2 from Dynamite Comics. The devil, he really wanted to be the coolest, most worshipped creature in all of the world. And then rock and roll was invented. And he was no longer the coolest thing that ever existed anymore, because now rock musicians, where they have undying devotion from their fans, and he's mad about it. So he is trying to kill all rock musicians all over the world, specifically the classic rock musicians. And so an angel comes to Alice Cooper and is basically like, hey, you're the one that's got to save the day. You got to defeat the devil. And he's like, how do I do that? And he's like, I don't know. Here's a guitar. It'll help you see when demons are around, but you got to figure out the rest from there, because we can't really interfere. And so Alice Cooper is now in a fight, not only for his life, but for the lives and souls of all other rock musicians from his time period and the world at large. So, it's kind of ridiculous and kind of great. Rodney Barnes is writing it. So if you like Philadelphia, you're getting that writer working on this story. So, it's fun. Crusader, issue 2 from Mad Cave. My favorite thing about this book is that the creators had the most fun stuff to say about it, about the fact that we see this Knights Templar knight suddenly find himself inside of a fantasy world, and they never say where this fantasy world is, and the creators basically said, our knight doesn't care, so we're never really going to find out where he is, because he doesn't care enough to ask. He's just trying to get home. And that's exactly what you see in this issue. He is woken up in this world. He's got this little frogman guide. He's got somebody chasing after him, and he can't remove his helmet. So he can't reveal himself to the audience or to the people helping him, and he doesn't care enough about the people around him to actually ask them who they are. And so he's just going on this quest, and it's almost Monty Python-esque levels of hilarity, because you're like, why is he not asking a question right now? And he's just like, I don't really care, I'm going to move on. And we're going to see if he finds his way out and if the bad guys get to him first or not. Rumpus Room, issue 2 from AWA and Mark Russell. I'm so excited about this book. This has been one that I have been waiting for a long time, and then Mark Russell talked about it at San Diego Comic-Con, and it made me even more excited. But this is the story of a billionaire who, when he gets tired of people, he just locks them up inside of his rumpus room. And then when he needs something, he takes a person out of there, and they never come back. And the people in the rumpus room have kind of just resigned themselves to the fact that they're going to die. And now when it comes time to vote on who's going to die, they have no problem doing it, because they're like, hey, we're all going down. Well, enter our main character, whose sister used to work for this billionaire, and she is a detective, and she shows up and she's like, hey, I'm doing an investigation on the fact that my sister is missing. Where did she go? What did you do to her? And he ends up throwing this detective in the rumpus room, and she manages to get in there with her gun, and she's a detective, so she's like, we've got to fight our way out. And they're like, that never ends well. It's really cute that that's what you want to do. We don't really want to try that. And she doesn't want to give up, so we are starting to see little bits and pieces of who each character is, and we're going to find out whether or not they can ever get out of the rumpus room, but it is such a good book so far. Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, issue 2 from Massive Publishing. This is kind of for you fans of like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. We're going to kind of put you in a story similar to that. Harriet Tubman is trying to help people get to freedom in more ways than one in this book, because there are demons of all kinds. Specifically, though, so far we've kind of focused on like a vampiric style demon that are chasing people and coming through, and Harriet Tubman is just this ultimate warrior who can fight her way through anything, and we are watching her right now trying to help this one particular family, a mother, daughter, and the dad get through this wave of demons so that they can make it to freedom on the other side. It's just, it's almost written like you're just watching a movie, honestly, because you have those conversations, and then they start fighting, and they're having these great conversations while that's happening. Check it out if you are a fan, like I said, of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. You're going to love that. Rare Flavors, issue 2 from Boom Studios. This is the new book from Ram V and Felipe Andrade, who brought us The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. And once again, they are just absolutely crushing it. Honestly, this is a really good crossover if you are a fan of manga, specifically food manga, or demon manga, or those combinations. This feels like a manga in comic book form. And it is about a man who is a demon, who is obsessed with food and of all kinds. And in issue 1, he decides he's going to make a movie about the foods that he loves. And we know as readers from reading the story around it that he is a demon that kind of gets the food that he loves, and also eats the people that help him get the food that he loves. And so there are people who are chasing him down, who are trying to stop him from his demonic activity. But he hires a guy, and he's like, hey, let's go make this movie. And the guy's like, I guess so. And so they are on this quest, and in issue 2, they go to this chili field, and they are supposed to be making this dish with chilies, and I love it because you always get the recipes. You get the history of the food, you get the recipes, you get the way to, like, all the details on preparation, and then they talk about what it tastes like and what it should taste like when it's done, and it's absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait to see where this book goes. It's so good, and it's going to blow your mind by the end. I mean, Layla Starr was so good. I already know this is going to go in great ways. Rebel Girls, issue 2 from Keen Spot. This is the story of a musical act of a bunch of girls who are teenage girls, kind of very Josie and the Pussycats-esque. Like, they're like, we play in bowling alleys and things like that, and maybe someday we'll make it big. And this guy who works for the devil shows up and is like, hey, I can help you out. I'm with this agency. I can make you a big deal. And they're like, yeah, no thanks. Very, very Josie and the Pussycats-esque. But he has no ability to back down, because he was told by the devil that that's the band she selected to bring destruction to the world. And so he has to get these girls to agree to it. So he is relentlessly following them. They're supposed to basically have the powers when they play music, like all hell breaks loose, literally. And so they're like, we're not in for that. Like, we're not in for you. We're not out for this. We just want to play our music, and we're going to see how that works out for them, because as you know, the devil can do, they don't really have much control over what's happening. So it's a lot of fun, and I love that it's Rebel Girls, like the Riot Girls. You're kind of getting a blend of all that. So check it out. That's issue 2. Blackout Bombshell, issue 2 from Sumerian Comics, and this is an oversized issue. It's almost like reading 2 issues at one time. And this is the story of a guy who is a private investigator and also an alcoholic. And in issue 1, he shows up at his house, and they're like, hey, you've got to find this person that's missing. Don't forget. And he's drunk, like the cabbie is like dropping him off. And while he's sitting in his office, this girl walks in and is like, oh, I want to hire you for this. And he's like, oh my God, I found the missing girl. She's right there. And then it ends up with him having to go backwards and kind of figure out what's going on and what this mystery actually is. And so over the last issue and this one, we kind of see a little bit of the flashbacks about what happened on the day that he blacked out. and how he got into this mess that he's in. And then we see the things just get crazy. He's had this massive adventure. He gets pulled by some people who think he's somebody else, and he ends up just on this major acid trip. And he's really not doing a good job of solving any mystery, and yet at the same time somehow lucks himself into solving tons of mysteries. It's a lot of fun. It's hilarious. It's got just enough of the investigation stuff to draw you in if you're into that. But it's got that satire parody feel like underneath it at the same time. And it's such a classic Sumerian book where it kind of blends those two. Like, we always get the weird, crazy, off the wall Sumerian books, and then sometimes we get the really deep Sumerian books. This one kind of falls right in between, where you get a little bit of both levels to that. Killmore issue 2 from IDW in their original imprint, and stay tuned for some cool announcements to come with this book in Bat City in the future. But this is issue 2 of Killmore. I'm very excited about this book. This is the story of a town that has lost its way. People have stopped living there. Nobody really comes to this town anymore. The police are moving out. The businesses are moving out because the streets are just made for serial killers. And we're kind of seeing that people just drive in from everywhere and come in and kill people in this town because nobody cares. And there's not really anybody solving these crimes. And so in this particular issue, at the end of the issue 1, we kind of saw a girl who was on the case of missing persons, and the guy who's like the last really homicide detective in town decide to team up, and they're going to solve some mysteries. And they automatically like go through and figure out how to close a bunch of cases because they realize people are dead, but now they're trying to figure out who is killing them. And we get to see a new serial killer brought in during this issue, and the craziness of these serial killers and how this creative team comes up with just the most off the wall ideas for them is insane. But seriously, check it out. Such a good story, and such a unique concept of like a town where there's nothing left essentially but serial killers. It's like, who's going to remain at the end, and are any of these detectives going to find it worth it? Blakemore issue 2 from Advent Comics. This, I don't even know that I read issue 1, and so I don't think we got it, honestly. And I got this issue 2 in, and I just thought it was issue 1, and I started reading it, and you could totally jump in here and be fine. But Blakemore is a detective who is like a witchcraft detective. He does all of the investigating for paranormal issues. And in this one, a woman is talking about how her daughter has gone missing. And he's like, there's a lot of other people that went missing. Maybe they're connected. And she has this piece of like moving fabric. And they're like, this is definitely a good clue. And so he goes to his like secret lair in the museum and works with somebody in the museum. And they end up finding this demon that is essentially kidnapping people, and handle that the best way that they can. It's so much of the like shadow service or things like that, where you have this, but the witchcraft side, but you also kind of feel a little bit more Doctor Who with him. Like, he talks about, oh, I have to manipulate time and space to get to this thing, and these are like all the people I work with, and it's kind of like, oh, this is an alien, we need to evaluate where it's from. So like, it's kind of paranormal, kind of sci-fi. Definitely a great blend for somebody who might like Torchwood or Doctor Who, or who read Shadow Service and like those detective paranormal situations. So Blakemore from Advent Comics, and again has the nice little protective cover, which you are able to take these off. They're perforated, they're meant to be removed, but they're really great for keeping your glossy books from getting fingerprints all over them if you don't want to have fingerprints on. Dwellings issue 2 from Oni Press. This is what if the Harvey comics that did things like Casper and Wendy the Witch and all the adorable books of the past were made for adults and still looked adorable, but were definitely not. And our first story in this is about a little girl who shows up to visit her grandma at her nursing home, and her grandma's not there. And she's like, oh my God, where's my grandma? And the people start trying to chase after her. And she ends up going through the woods and like into the woods, and all of a sudden her grandma's puppet that she is carrying with her comes to life and is like, I can show you where your grandma is, and like is leading her through these woods and into this dark destruction. And she's like, I don't know if I can trust you, like you seem dangerous, and all this crazy, ridiculous, off the like wall, gory stuff happens that's just absolutely perfect for a book, and yet somehow the most adorable thing at the same time. And the ending of that, I was like, ooh, good call. And then the second story is about a journalist who gets asked to do a story by a very rich man whose way that he entertains himself is by starting businesses, and he ends up starting a haunted house inside of a place that is actually supposed to be haunted. And the reporter's like, I don't want to write a story about you. I don't want to do this. Like, you've got nothing to offer. And then he realizes where it is, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's like a haunted house. We get the backstory of that, and then we jump back to the current time, and inside that haunted house, things get crazy, and we go down some really dark holes and find out, there's more to this haunted house than meets the eye, and there is definitely some stuff coming. Honestly, it was really hard. I wasn't sure if I wanted to put this in my picks of the week or not, because I really wanted it in my picks of the week, but this is another one where I just feel like Dwellings is just always in my picks of the week because it's so adorable and so dark at the same time. What is the name of the video game I always want to play that has the little cute chibi character? It's not
Cult of the Lamb.
Cult of the Lamb. If you played that video game, this kind of has that same adorable, like, chibi character feeling, only just to put you in a really dark space at the same time. Charm City issue 2 from Scout Comics. I love this book. It is so much fun. One of the books that we had the big Scout always gives us 2 months between issue 1 and 2 to give people time to order it, and I am so glad that it's finally back out. This is the story of a girl who is a witch, and she's from a witch family, and she was kicked out of her family, and now she's living on her own. She actually works as the person who covers the music beat for her newspaper, so she's always talking about all the cool bands that she's listening to. And witches in her neighborhood, specifically from her coven of witches, start to get murdered. And the police, of course, don't understand what's going on, and they don't necessarily see the link. And she does. And so she's like, let me be on this investigation. And they're like, no, you're the music reporter. And she's like, I need in. She ends up showing up, going back to her coven and trying to get in. And we learn in this issue a little bit more of like why she's kicked out and what her connections are to this coven and the different people in there. But this is definitely shaping up to be one of those books that's going to have a lot of really good twists and turns, and all of the characters are either going to be love or hate characters. And we introduce a new one who is a nightclub owner in this issue, and I already want to punch him, but he's also like possibly our only hope, so we'll punch him later. Great book. Pick it up. Again, this is kind of in that like Black Magic Shadow Service vein, but a little bit more of almost new adult kind of feel, because they are very young, trying to solve their own problems at the same time. Midnight Western Theater Witch Child issue 2. This is technically a prequel to Midnight Western Theater from Scout Comics. And I know Midnight Western Theater, it was optioned recently, so hopefully this is going to lead into more stories from this universe. But in Midnight Western Theater, we have an immortal girl named Ortsnesia. We'll go with that. And we didn't really know like how she got her immortality or what was going on. And so we've gotten this backstory, which is all about a witch who takes her in as a young girl after some cultish people in her life did some dark magic that ended up giving her immortal life. And so she's being trained by this witch, And we have met a man who is very slimy and terrible, and of course presents himself as like the governor of the town and this great person. And in this issue, Ortanasia has fallen for his charm, and our witch mama Sarah is not about that life, and I love her so much. Because she's just like, no, that's not how this is going to go. And I cannot wait to see how this plays out, because I know where Midnight Western Theater starts, and I really want to see how we get there from here. The Cauldron, issue one shot. Just kidding, not issue at all. And this is from Band of Bards, and hopefully will lead us to an actual series about this character. But this is all about a girl who is a teenager, and she is from a witch family, and they tell her that she has to learn her next lesson, which is how to summon a demon. And so they send her to stay at like the family house off like somewhere else. And the whole time, she's got 6 days to learn how to do it, and nothing is going well, and she keeps having all these problems. She keeps getting distracted, and the house butler is so weird and creepy, and she's just like, what is going on, and why is this guy so awkward? And we get to see the process of her trying to learn how to do this, and all the fun that she has along the way, and all of the crazy hijinks. This is a young adult book, so it does have a lot more of that happy-go-lucky, just fun feel to it than it would if it was more of the dark adult stuff. So if you're looking for a less scary, like not quite as young as Halloween Town, but definitely closer on that side than the dark horror of the normal side of Halloween, this is a good one for you. And it is a one-shot, and like I said, hopefully will lead to something more with those characters, because I really like how adorable she is. Oh, I didn't even realize that I was talking about number ones. Dying Days, issue 1 from Red 5 Comics. The back quote of this is actually a really great intro to it, because it's per our calculations. Any child born today has a lifespan on average of 40 years. And basically what happens in this book is rapid acceleration. People are born, and we always say, you know, the moment you're born, you start dying. But in this book, that is actually the case. Like, you age up very quickly, and you're kind of at your like midlife crisis when you should be approaching like your young adulthood. And this is the story of one guy who is technically like a young kid, a young adult, but he looks like he's in his 40s and maybe even older at times, maybe 30s, late 30s, 40s. But he is trying to figure out how he can get the help that he needs. And there is these like these cryo freezing arcs essentially that they're putting people in, and there's supposed to be a lottery. And he finds out that he wasn't selected for it very early on, and he's having a conversation with his mom. And he just gets really upset about it, and as he's doing his investigation, we find out a little bit more of the truth to this cryo-freezing situation. And we see that that's going to open him up to a completely different adventure as the story goes on. Really great concept, and Red 5's definitely brought us some really great books recently, so I can't wait to see how this plays out. Blowtorch, Bad Roads, issue 1 from Comicsburg. This I actually had, the creator had mentioned this was coming out soon on our YouTube channel, and so I was really excited when I saw it in my pile this week, because I was like, yes, I'm finally going to get to read it. It is the story of a guy who seems to be a part of a network of people who have some kind of fight training. They do something, maybe they're mercenaries, maybe they're something else. And on his way home, he stopped from something that he did, a job that he did. He stops at a gas station, and while he's inside the gas station, somebody steals his car. And so he's like, okay, that's not going to happen. Like, I have to go back and like get my car back. Well, when he follows the guy to where he's from, turns out that guy is in a group of people who are thieves and like run drugs and, you know, do all these bad things. And so their little gang of people are all out there, and they're like, oh, congratulations to this kid that stole the car. And then he's like, oh, I have to take out all of these people. And so we get that action movie essentially of the one guy standing up against the big group of people that he's got to fight if he's going to save the day. And there are a lot of really cool twists and turns in how this one plays out. And I am really excited to see how this fight continues as we go into the next issue, because like I said, those little twists and turns really set us up for something really cool. And I think that, again, I don't know what this guy's backstory is, and I think we'll get more of that in the next issue. And I really just can't wait to figure out like how he knows all this stuff, and like what weird thing was he into if they're like the bad guys, but he doesn't seem like he's much better. So can't wait to see some backstory for him. Almost Dead issue 1 from Ablaze Comics. This is a zombie type story from Ablaze that's done in a kind of like Walking Dead-esque style, but a little bit different. This is all about a girl who is on her way to return home in that I don't want to go home kind of situation. She's kind of going to her uncle's house, and when she gets to the airport, she gets off the plane and she ends up passing out in the bathroom because she feels really like dizzy and unsure what's going on. And when she wakes up, she has no idea how long it's been, but essentially a zombie apocalypse has broken out, but she's completely clueless to it. And you as a reader are witnessing it. You can see the obvious like zombiness of it all. I'm going to show you some of that. And she just like cannot put 2 and 2 together, but somehow she's also like really good at not getting attacked. And she just, as she's making her way through this airport and to her uncle's house and everything, she just keeps having these blackout moments and waking up like who knows how many days later, and how long later. And every time she does, it's like the world gets worse and worse and worse. And so it's like, what if you took that moment at the beginning of Walking Dead where Rick was in the hospital, and instead of making it like 40 days all at one time, he like woke up and got a little bit further along each time, and then, but still had no clue what was going on. It's a great start to a story, and I really can't wait to see where that goes. Up next, we've got A Haunting on Mars issue 1 from Scout Comics. And this is exactly what it says it is. This is about a world where we have people who have different kinds of powers, essentially. Like there's a girl who's like a hacker, but she's kind of like technokinesis, essentially. And like we have like the psionic people, things like that. And so they have taken this hacker and captive, and she's kind of a prisoner, and they've taken her to Mars, and they're trying to figure out how to get into this place so that they can get this information that they need. And so they go there. Crazy monsters, crazy different creatures, crazy people, all bad things are happening, and they have to kind of make their way through each of those things and kind of figure out if they can make it. And we see a lot of people not, as so often in action movies do, but it's definitely a great start. And you're gonna have a little bit of a gap, obviously, because it's a Scout book before you see issue 2, but it gives you time to get in here and read issue 1. Faceless in the Family, issue 1, and this is from Oni Press. This is such a like crazy, like off the wall story about a guy who believes that his face is destroyed completely and that nobody wants to see it and that nobody would want to be connected to him. So he is on a mission to get to this special city where he can get facial reconstruction surgery done. And along the way, he meets a guy who's like, hey, I'm going to join you. I'm just going to follow you and be a part of your team. We can be a crew together. And then they meet this girl who's in trouble, and they're like, she should join our crew too. Kind of like Wizard of Oz-esque, where like everywhere you turn, you just meet a new person and they just join your family to go see the wizard. And actually exactly the same. They are on this path to this town, and there are other people chasing after them who are trying to get this girl and use her. And there's all these weird creatures and crazy stuff going on. This is also an oversized issue, definitely the same size as reading two comics at the same time, and it's very heartfelt mixed in with all that weird oddities. And if you're just looking for a sci-fi world that has a big adventure, this is going to be a good one for that. Dracula, issue 1 from Image Skybound. This is your new Universal Monsters imprint from Skybound. I'm so excited. And if you're going to start off the Universal Monsters, they decided where else to go but Dracula. And who else would be the person to write your Dracula story But James Tynion with Martin Simmons on art. So if you are a fan of Department of Truth, they literally said like they were on a break. They weren't going to work on anything else together for a minute until they came back to Department of Truth. So they each had time to work on their projects. And then this was presented to them and they were like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this. And I've heard that James is basically describing it like Dracula 1.5, essentially. But the story follows Renfield as he's being interrogated about this new person, this new master he believes he has, and whatever it is that lurks in these woods. And we do see Mina, and she's, there, and she's like, oh, I want to figure out what's going on. I want to jump into this. I want to kind of know what this story is. And so we've set up basically every character that you know from the Dracula story coming into this, and we're just starting to see what this world is going to be. Renfield's like, he's coming for you. He's going to destroy all of you. The moment will come. We will all be his food. He will be our ruler. He will be our master. And it sets that up and leaves it really open. James Tynion is a big fan of the Dracula movies, like all of them from Universal. So there's going to be a lot that comes into this. And a great way to celebrate is to get a bottle of 19 Crimes. They do have a Dracula. Matt said there's a Merlot Dracula wine from 19 Crimes. They were limited, so it's kind of whatever's left at your local shops. But I'm drinking the Frankenstein because he's one of my favorite Universal monsters. And honestly, Mary Shelley is one of the best people ever.
It's an official collaboration with Universal.
It is. It actually, does it say it on the front? I know it says it on the back. Should I flip it around?
Yeah.
It is a official collaboration for these wines. It's also official collaboration for the books. So the Skybound Universal Monsters imprint is actually has to stay canonized with the Universal Monsters world because it is actually licensed. So they do have to take all of that into consideration. And they do have to run it past people. So I'm really excited about it because everybody touches the Universal Monsters. They're in everything. We've already had 6 books that have them in there. But to have an actual Universal licensed Universal Monster series and to give it to the Dracula story to Tynion and Simmons, it's just going to be... I can't wait to see who gets the other characters. I can't wait for the creature from the Black Lagoon. And the Mummy. Oh my god. Let's just let Brendan Fraser write the Mummy book. Let's just make that a thing. I'm going to start a petition online. The Prism issue 1 from Ablaze Comics. We've entered a time where we have destroyed most of the world and we need to find a way to fix it. And the scientist, a young scientist, determines that the way to fix it is through sonic energy. And the best way to create sonic energy is to play rock and roll. And so they are actually trying to put together the greatest band ever to essentially go on a tour through the galaxy to build up enough sonic energy to essentially save the world. And the scientist that was supposed to go on the mission was the mentor of our young girl, and he was not approved because he's too old, and so now she gets to go on this. And we actually see a little bit of the people who might be on this mission get to talk about it. And I love it because the first half of the book doesn't actually, it's all kind of the rock stuff, and it's the stuff that's going on in the world, and it's actually midway through the book where it feels like the book really starts to tell us that story. And I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with this because it's such a big premise, and it's definitely going to go in a lot of different directions very quickly. Howie the Hellhound, issue 1 from Scout Comics. One of the most adorably crazy books that Scout has put out this week. I love this book. It was so cute. This is about a hellhound who escapes from hell. And once he does that, he's trying to just get through Earth and make his way through. And a young girl who is in her 20s and she's trying to be an actress, and she goes to this audition and they're tell me about yourself. And she can't really give them any good feedback, and she's really feeling down on her luck when she runs into Howie the Hellhound, and he's being chased by some people, and she thinks it's rude that they're trying to attack this dog, so she's like, pretends Annie style that it's her dog, and is going to protect him. And so now she has this dog who is a giant hellhound, and he's just going to live with her and her roommate, and things start going crazy very quickly. But also at the same time, they get really, really adorable, and even the demons are like, oh crap, somebody loves him, this is going to be terrible. It's absolutely adorable, and if you are a dog fan, you need this book. I have no idea where it will go, but I don't even care. I'm just along for the ride. The 13 Origins Sapalote. This is issue 1, and this is from Scout and their Chispa line, which is their Latin American culture imprint. And yes,
That's Kevin Garcia's story.
Oh, is this? No, this is not Kevin Garcia. He has a 13 Origins, but this isn't his. I was like, wait, he didn't do this one. He has one coming soon. But this is the story of a character who is a young person who got superpowers and just kind of really wants to help the world and doesn't really know how he's going to do that. And so he ends up, like, he's chasing after this guy who's got an axe and who's being chased by bad guys, and he's like, I can save you, but you kind of have to, like, give up the axe, and you have to just trust me, and the guy's like, I don't trust you. And we get a little bit of his powers and a little bit of his origin story in that we see him talking to his dad, and his dad's like, I know you just want to help people. You can't help everybody. Some things aren't going to go the way you want. And kind of just gives him that pep talk that he needs to decide whether or not being a superhero is going to be the thing for him. It was a really great moment. We don't see a lot of times, you know, when superheroes are kids and teenagers in books, they are trying to figure it out on their own. And I love that they immediately were like, no, this kid has his dad to talk to, and we get to see some of that relationship develop immediately. But we are going to see other origins for the 13, building out a little universe for that. Genesis 2, issue 1 from Gen 7 Comics. This is the story of a guy who's probably in his 20s, and he's living in this big city in a futuristic world where everything is like drone based, and every day drones are just crashing and nobody's investigating really what's going on. Meanwhile, he has a secret lab where he's been doing all of this crazy work to basically genetically alter animals, and in a good way, I guess. Like, he's building like these perfect animals, all based on the fact that, like, when the world was still positive and like everything was going well, like him and his young friend had found like a cat, and the cat meant the world to them, and they were trying to figure out how to save it. And so now he's kind of trying to figure out a way to save animals and use animals to save people, because we're all in a point where the world is flooding and destruction is coming, and there might not be a way out. And so he's like, maybe if I can save the animals, I can figure out how to save the people, and I can save the world. But it's not going well so far. A great start to a great new series, and I already want to see if this character can figure out his solution. Drive Like Hell, issue 1 from Dark Horse Comics. This is the story of a guy who thinks he's got a really good plan to steal a car, and he does just that, and he steals the car, and they rob a bank, and they do all kinds of, him and his girlfriend do all kinds of crazy things, except this car may be, in fact, property of the devil, and he's not very happy about the fact that they stole the car. And the girlfriend has some really bad luck when they are robbing the bank, and now he's kind of just on this joyride trying to outrun the devil himself and all of the cops and everybody who are chasing after him. I know this was one of the books, this came out last week, and when it did, I had a lot of people requesting this book. They were very excited about it. And I can see why. Like, when you read it, it moves really well, and there's some twists and turns for sure in this one that I was like, ooh, I just thought this was going to be about a guy stealing a car, but this went in a lot of places really fast. So check it out. We're going to actually skip that because it's licensed, so you can know. Okay. we're going to skip that. We're going to go to The Rescuer. We're going to go to The Rescuer, issue 1, and this is also from Gen 7 Comics. This is a 3-part story. There's 3 issues inside of this, this one. And it starts with the story of a guy who calls himself The Rescuer. He's a superhero. And it's him telling us the story of how he can't die and nothing can happen to him, and kind of just giving us a little rundown of his powers. But he tells us about a woman that he met and he fell in love with, and all of the bad things that ended up happening with her, and all of the good things that happen, and just how how you can't physically die, but emotionally we can die 1,000 times. And then the second story in there is about him and how he is, as a superhero, he doesn't deal with collecting people. He just kills bad guys and doesn't want to have to deal with any of the mess that comes with collecting them. And he gets sent to stop a woman from killing herself, and it's a very triggering moment for him, and he tries to figure out how to save her. And then we finally get his origin story at the end, and we see how he went from somebody who just had like a supernatural almost ability and strength to the superhero that he is today, and the things that crossed his path that kind of led him down that way, and why he chose to be the superhero that he is, and how he was kind of like this good person to begin with. Really great character. I want to see a full story from him, because the little ones were really good, and I'd love to see them do a full-on story with him. Speaking of somebody I cannot wait to see more of their full story, The Greylock, issue 1 from Scout Comics. This is about a guy who was a magi and was trained in like all of this mage, like by this mage culture, and was supposed to be in their magi realm fighting against demons, and he crosses their path. He doesn't do it in the way they want to, so they like brand him a Greylock, which is basically makes him an outcast, but he still is determined to fight demons. And so now he's on his own, and he's basically kind of doing a lot of like shady jobs for people who are like, I'll pay you money, and a lot of mercenary work against demons that people are hiring for. And so he is sitting in a bar, and a woman of the light, this like light elf essentially, comes in, and she's like, I will offer all of this money to somebody who helps me. And they're like, nobody's going to help you. Nobody likes your kind. And it leads us on to our adventure, because she says that she can get his Greylock status taken away from him and get him back into the Magi. And he knows it's a trap, but he has to be a part of it as soon as he can, because he needs that solution. Really, really good setup. Can't wait to see where that goes for sure. And speaking of really great setups and books I'm super excited about, this is Gone issue 1 from one of my favorite creators, Jock, and the Distillery publishing company. And Distillery has only released so far a sampler of 13 stories, and 8 of those stories are going to get full books, and this is the first one of those to actually come out as a book. And Jock is doing the writing and the art, and I love that Distillery makes prestige size books just for Jock's art to be big, because I just love Jock's art. This is a story of a dystopian world where the rich people live in a city and the poor people live on the outskirts, and they have no food, and so they run different incursions to try to get food from the people who are part of the city. And a young girl is the one that kind of leads a lot of that, and her mom is trying to get her to stop. She's already lost her dad, and she's pregnant with another sibling, and she's like, I just want you to be here with me and we'll figure it out. And the girl's like, I just have to do one more mission. And on that mission, she ends up not with her usual people, and she gets trapped on this ship that they are trying to steal supplies from. And this is going to be the story of her experience on that ship. It's her experience with these terrorists, essentially, and all of the people that from both sides who are just not good people, and her trying to find her way through. It's already fantastic. Blood Commandment, issue 1 from Image Comics, and the guy who created Something Epic, which is now called One Man Art, is I'm assuming the actual, like, maybe a new imprint for him to just do work on his own. But this is the story of a father and son who live in the middle of nowhere. And the dad is always training the son how to be the best hunter, the best gatherer, the best survival person. And he's like, look, there's bad stuff is coming your way, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but we need to prepare for it. And we know that he has like this old life, but we don't know what it is. And they kind of live off the grid because of that. And we talk about in here that the kid is very upset because he wants somebody to be there for him because his mom passed away, and he just wants to be able to talk to the dad about that, but he doesn't want to talk about it. And we get to see a little bit of what the dad's past and his hidden secrets may be by the end of this issue, and it's going to be a good story. I'm so excited. Something Epic is one of my, it's literally labeled as my pick on the shelf. It's one of my favorite books on the shelves right now. But this, I cannot wait to see where this goes. The art's going to be fantastic. The story is going to be just fantastic as well. It's going to be great. And if you're a horror fan, I recommend it for sure. Paladin of Axes, and this is a one-shot from Image, and it is a square-bound book, so you get the whole story and this nice little thing. But this is about a guy in the 70s who is, he is essentially a roadie, but he doesn't want to be called that because he feels like he does so much more for this rock star that he works with. And at the very beginning of the book, he's talking about all of the things he wanted to accomplish and all the places and things he felt like he'd do someday. And then, in typical rock fashion, there is a plane crash. And he finds himself suddenly at the mercy of the underfolk. And we know them in our world as gnomes. And they are responsible for collecting all of the cursed instruments and items throughout the world and repairing that magic, essentially, and collecting the good magic out of it and keeping it safe. And they offer him the chance to be a part of their mission, and that is the only option he is given. And so we get to see his work as he joins these little gnomies and works on their mission with them. It sounds utterly ridiculous, and at times it 100% is, and at other times it's actually really fantastic. So it's Jerry Duggan, so you know it's well done. Dr. Corvus, issue 1 from some publishing company, Fantico. This is based on the novel Children of the Abyss, and it is about a cop who ends up he's on his beat and he sees a young woman get attacked by a weird creature, and then he is also attacked by that creature. And when he is collected and taken to the hospital, a man named Dr. Corvus comes to him and says, hey, some weird stuff happened. You might feel weird about it. It's going to get weirder, just so you know. The cop ends up losing his job and is like, I have to figure out what's going on. And he goes back to Corvus to try to find some answers and ends up working with him on trying to figure out what these evil creatures are and what is going on in his city, and hopefully start to solve the situation. And we learn about Corvus's sidekick, who is a really snarky rat who can speak. Check it out. Again, if you like your classic monster tales, this is going to kind of give you that same vibe. Opus and Ashes, a one-shot from Comics Experience. This was one of my favorite Halloween books. I read this last week on Halloween week, and I'm so glad I did because it's very much like the perfect little mini horror movie. Could have been inside of a creep show, but it is the story of two girls who are trying to get away and have a weekend. One of them is a writer, and her friend is the one that's you have to get your work done. So they go to this cabin that the family owns, thinking they're getting away. And when the girl gets there, her mom is there, and they have a terrible relationship. And the mom's like, it's about time I was going to freeze to death because you weren't here, and somebody needs to chop wood. And so the friend's like, I'll go chop wood. You work on your book. And the girl almost freezes to death trying to get enough wood because this big giant snowstorm is coming in, and they all get trapped in this house. And if you get trapped in a house with your psychotic, overbearing mother and your best friend And you have deadlines that you want to meet, and a lot of pent-up feelings. Things happen. And you should definitely read this one shot. Slow Burn, issue 1 from Boom Studios. This is the story of a girl who is from one of those mob-style families where crime is just the usual thing. She gets, you have to be a part of the family, you have to do the thing, and she's over it and she wants out. And so her and her friends decide that they're going to take matters into their own hands and try to escape from it, and it does not go the way that she plans, and they are on the run, and they kind of end up in this town that is just leaking with toxic energy, quite literally, and whether or not they are going to be able to get away from not only the family that's chasing them, but from this toxic place, of the literal and figurative, we are going to find out as the series goes on. Boom's been doing a lot of these 5-part miniseries, and they always end up being just like perfectly compact, great stories. So, and then next up we have Dark Spaces Dungeon, issue 1 from IDW, and the Dark Spaces imprint. Really, the book is called Dungeon. And this is the return of Scott Snyder and Hayden Sherman, who kicks off Dark Spaces with a new story. And it is about a man and his family who live kind of out a little bit further in the woods, but it's still kind of like suburban woodland. And they have this great, beautiful relationship, and just the classic family life. And he goes for a run one morning, and he trips over a hatch in the ground. And suddenly, investigators come because we find out that there is a serial killer who has been keeping people in dungeons of different kind all throughout the country over decades. And this is one of those dungeons. And where that goes, I'm not going to tell you because there's so much that happens in this very first issue. And again, Scott Snyder is always phenomenal at his storytelling, especially in his indies. If you are a fan of Batman, Scott Snyder's Batman, and you've never read an indie book that he's written, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. Just read a Scott Snyder indie book because they're all phenomenal, and this is going to be yet another one that leads us that way. All right, I've got a couple of picks of the week really fast that we're going to talk through really quickly, and it's 2 weeks. So first up is Edenwood, issue 1 from Image Comics. If you were a fan of Nocterra, this is Tony S. Daniel doing his own story, and it is all about a group of kids who live in a world where basically like witches and demons are in a battle against each other, and the more that each side wins, the more of the land gets absorbed into this crazy world that nobody can come out of. And two of the teenagers are in love with each other, and they're having this great moment, and something happens, and they end up sucked into the Edenwood. And in there, immediately, one of the teens meets a demon killer. And he finds out about this like Ronin demon killer and all this stuff that's going on. And we learn that time and space and everything is really irrelevant in this. And the universe that is built out from this book very, very quickly is massive, and it's huge, and it's going to be a great story. So if you did not pick up Edenwood #1 last week, come grab it immediately, because especially if you're fans of Nocterra or if you're fans of fantasy storytelling, you're going to absolutely love it. 7 Years in Darkness, issue 4 from Comics Experience Publishing. This book is always in my picks of the week, so I know I don't need to spend too much time telling you that it's incredible. But if you don't know, it's basically what if Harry Potter had been made for adults. It's about a bunch of kids who are from different magical families who go to live 7 years in training. 72 kids, I believe it is, go in, and we'll see who makes it out. And this follows particularly this class of kids. And in this issue specifically, we are working with one of the kids named Matthew as they have to undergo a new challenge to see who will become the weather master of their class. And, more kids will probably die in the making of this issue. It's dark, it's creepy, and Joseph Schmalke's art is perfect for it. The Space Between, issue 1 from Boom Studios. This was such an awesomely beautiful start to this story. This is about a girl who's a pilot on a space station, and she goes off on an mission, and they tell her not to do something, and of course she does it anyway because she's going to save people and not just live by the rules. And by that, she gets thrown in solitary confinement because you cannot argue with the people. And in the process of that, while she's trying to escape from there, she finds out that the space station is not everything that she's been told it was. And she ends up falling to one of the lower levels and meeting a man from down there who just absolutely kind of like becomes the perfect person for her. And they have this beautiful love story that is completely destroyed in so many ways and made better in so many ways and changed over time and everything by the classism that runs this space station. And it could have all been a one-shot and still been a perfect issue of a comic because it leads so much into that. So if you're looking for a beautiful sci-fi story, I definitely recommend you check that one out. Speaking of Scott Snyder and Dan Panosian, two people that I said were some of my favorites tonight, they're working together on a book called Canary. This is one of their Comixology originals that Dark Horse puts out from Comixology. So each issue is actually 2 issues in one. And this is the story of a man who is a ranger in the Old West, and a U.S. Marshal, I should say, and he is sent to go investigate a murder, of people dying, a strain of terrible things, and weird, kind of always seems to take on these weird cases, and he gets sent back to a place called Canary, where he has had his biggest standoff ever before with a person, and we kind of see where that weirdness went and all the crazy things that happen, but the other people don't really know the true story of what happened. And we are going to see this U.S. Marshal deal with some really dark, really creepy things very fast. And as we get further and further into the story, he does have to take a geologist with him who's going to test the water because they think it's the water that's making everybody go crazy and kill all these people. But we're going to see what it really is and what's in that water as Canary unfolds. And you definitely do not want to miss this. The Dark Horse Comixology Scott Snyder books have, literally been award-winning. So next up, we have Mare Hollow, The Shoemaker, issue 1 from Scout Comics. And this is a nonstop. And what that means is that you're going to get this issue and then a whole entire graphic novel is going to come out. And you're going to get to have the whole story all at once. What I love about this book, honestly and truthfully, is that the art looks like claymation. It's so cool how they did that. You don't really see a lot of books drawn in that style, which was already great. But it's also a really cool classic horror story. You get that, there's a woman, and the legend of a woman who just shows up in a town and the things that happen where she goes and what follows her. And then we see this unassuming shoemaker who just is the nicest person that you'll ever meet. Like, I don't think this man makes a single penny in the entire time because he just keeps helping people and giving things away. And of course, the paths cross of this beautiful, mysterious woman who shows up and the shoemaker, and quickly he falls in love and is hoping that she's going to be the perfect one for him. It has a lot of the Coraline-esque feel to it, so it's a lot of that Gaiman-esque writing and stylization. And so if you are a fan of that or classic like folktale horror stories, this is going to be a good one for you. Or if you're a fan of claymation. And then lastly, my last pick of the week this week is actually Vault Comics, and the coolness that they are, because they gave out Unnatural Order issue 1 to retailers for free. And as a thank you for them doing that for us, we are actually giving you Unnatural Order issue 1 for free if you come into the store over the next couple of weeks. And if you come on Wednesday at 7, we are actually going to be having a book club for it. So whether you've read it or not by Wednesday at 7, you should totally come and hang out because we're going to talk about the book.
And that's free too.
And that's free too. Book club's free, books free. Come hang out, grab the book, read it before. Like, you could be here at 6:30 and read this book and then join us for book club and tell us all your feelings about it. But if you don't know what it's about just yet, it is the story of essentially the Roman Empire when they are fighting Britain. They let go of all of the prisoners in Britain when they win, and one of them is a dark, evil druid who brings all of the destruction and death to the world. And now they have to join forces with a lot of other people to try to put this druid back. And so this ragtag team of people are working to use all of the skills at their hand to find him and bring him back into the binding that he needs to be bound with. Second half of the book gets really deep and really dark, and there are some twists and turns that you will not see coming as you get to the end. That's really going to open up what this book actually is going into issue 2. Come talk to us about it on Wednesday at 7 to 9. Come grab this book. It's 100% free for this first issue for the next couple of weeks. And if you like it, let us know by next week, because we're going to be ordering that issue 2. And we definitely want to make sure people who love it are getting a chance. And again, shout out to Vault for that. And also shout out to Vault because they did their first ever comic store spotlight as a part of their Vault cast, and they spotlighted Bat City as their first store, and we super appreciate that. We love our friends at Vault. They did a really amazing little video about us, and we're so thankful to them for all their support, not only for us but for all comic book stores. So thank you guys so much for being super cool. All right, I'm going to run through these books that are still in stock that I don't have time to tell you about all of them, but I will in person if you want to come by. Advent Comics had their Frightmare issue 1. Check that out. Gargoyle by Moonlight was a one-shot from CEX that had a couple different stories about this gargoyle who fights crime. Hellboy, Giant Robot. If you ever wanted to see Mecha Hellboy, here's your moment. Here Comes Calico, issue 6, all about a superhero who takes out people who are mean to animals. Mega City Max from 2000 AD. This is all of the, your preview book, essentially, of mini stories for all the things coming up from 2000 AD, who brings us things like Judge Dredd. Under a Blood Red Moon, issue 4 from Drin Productions. This is a part of their Drin After Dark adult line, vampires and werewolves fighting against aliens. Happy Astronaut, issue 2 from Keen Spot. Mother Russia issue 2 also was out this last couple weeks. So if you were like, how did we get from 1 to 3? Don't worry, issue 2 is there. Wrong Earth, We Could Be Heroes, issue 1 from Ahoy Comics. We are bringing back the Wrong Earth universe. The Edge, issue 4 from Comicsburg. Something is Killing the Children, issue 34 from Boom Studios is out, and things are getting heated. Trakovi, issue 2 from Scout Comics. He's going to get what's coming to him. My Little Pony Classics Reimagined, the Wizard, or the Unicorn of Odd, your retelling of the Wizard of Oz through the My Little Pony. It's adorable. Negaduck, issue 2 from Dynamite's Disney Villains and Your Darkwing Duck universe. Nervous Rex, issue 7. Hades, issue 3 from the Disney Villains line at Dynamite. Radiant Black, issue 26, has a part 1 and 2, because if you know right now, in Radiant Black, we are kind of seeing a split of who's going to hold the Radiant Black, so we actually have 2 different issues. You do need both, because the story is splitting. Saint Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac, Time Odyssey, issue 2 from Ablaze. Honestly, if you are a fan of manga and magical girls, this book is the one you need. New Burn, issue 12 from Image Comics. This is Chip Zdarsky giving us a detective story for a guy who works for the mob. Blacksmith, issue 5 from Ahoy Comics, a paranormal investigator. Detective Comics, issue 1076. Some crazy stuff happening in the Bat family. Batman, Catwoman, Gotham War, Scorched Earth. If you've been following along the Batman, Catwoman Gotham War story, this is your next installment in that. Avengers, issue 7 from our new Avengers run. Alan Scott, Green Lantern, issue 1. Alan Scott's back. He's got his own story. Come check it out. King Spawn, issue 27 from Image. I know you probably all saw the announcement. There's a ton more Spawn books to come your way soon. Star Wars, issue 40. That number just keeps climbing. Charles Soule is killing it with Star Wars. Supergirl had a special, bringing back Supergirl in her own thing for a little bit, just with this one shot. Venom, issue 27. There's been a lot going on with Natasha and the symbiote in the Venom world. X-Men, issue 28. White Widow, issue 1, with Yelena Belova getting her own book as her own title. As we're leading into like the MCU bringing in Thunderbolts, we know that Yelena's going to be a big focal point. This is also your local comic shop day variant. If you don't know, local comic shop day is a day to go out and support your local comic store. It is November 22nd, which is the day before Thanksgiving this year. There's going to be a ton of different variants that are exclusive to stores that are participating in local comic shop day, and this is the first little teaser of what's to come for that. Walking Dead Deluxe issue 76. Those are the reprints of Walking Dead in color. Stranger Things has a new title with Voyages #1. Star Wars Hyperspace Stories. This is the first appearance of the Bad Batch, who just had their own show on Disney Plus in comics. There it is. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the Scorpius run. And I think that's issue 3. Street Fighter Omega issue 1. All you Street Fighter fans, if you didn't know there are comics for it, there are. Heat Seeker, part of the Gun Honey series, Gun Honey universe, and this is issue 4. Conan, the new series back out at Titan Comics, no longer a part of the Marvel universe. This is issue 3 of that, and I know my Conan classic fans are loving this. Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer, issue 4. Somebody the other day told me, they were like, I didn't know Buffy had comics. And I'm like, that is where your Buffy world went. That's what you got to go for it. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This is your movie prequel special for the new Aquaman movie coming up next month. It is out December 20th. So come grab your prequel. And then Whisper of the Woods from Mad Cave. This is a trade paper, a graphic novel from Mad Cave, all about those people who don't pay attention when they say not to go into the woods and who goes into the haunted woods anyway. That's a lot of books. I was going to say that's all I have for you, but let's not act like it wasn't a lot. That was a lot of books I just told you about. I hope you found something in them that you want to try out. If you do, let us know, because I would love to hear what you thought of all the books that you read in our comments. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and don't forget to tell me which books you like. We will see you this week in the shop for New Comic Book Day on Wednesday, when we'll also have our Unnatural Order book club at 7 p.m. completely free, even the book. Thursday night is Ladies and Non-Binary Nerd Night, so join us for that at 8 o'clock. It's going to be a lot of fun this week at Bat City. On Saturday, November 11th, Matt is actually playing a show at Oscura right across the street. So grab your tickets for that. It's $10. You get to see not only Matt, but 3 other acts. It's going to be a lot of fun. He is first, so he's going to be playing around 7:30. Make sure you get your tickets in advance so you can save some money. But no matter when you get your tickets, if you bring your wristband in next week after you see Matt play, or a receipt showing that you bought something to eat or drink at Oscura that night, we will actually give you a discount on your purchase of 10% off. So go see Matt play and get some discounts next week in the future. November 11th, go do it. It's going to be fun. Until then, happy reading. We'll see you then. Bye.